Well, good afternoon. This is Ron Anderson. I'm the host for today's webinar on accelerating performance and productivity and profit at Purity Life Health Products. People are still signing in, so we're going to pause a little bit before we log in. But if you can see here, to connect to the phone system, you can either use your computer and speaker, that's the default, or you can call in via these phone numbers that you see here on this page. Okay, we're going to get started. Today's panelists here include Matthew James, who's the president of Purity Life Health Products, which is the largest health products distributor in Canada. I'm Ron Anderson, president of Allegro BI. We are a lead QlikView partner. I'm the host, and also joining us is Scott Jennings, who is QlikView's retail and wholesale industry expert responsible for market development for QlikView. And some general information here. Everyone is on listen-only mode. This session is going to last approximately 50 to 60 minutes. You can submit questions at any time during the presentation by the question and answer panel at the bottom right hand of your screen. Please make sure that you address all your questions to all panelists, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. This is today's agenda. Introduction. The feature is going to be with Matthew James talking about his experience with QlikView at Purity Life. Then I'm going to give a live demonstration of the QlikView product. And then, as I said, we'll have some times for the question and answer at the end. So, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron. Again, for everyone's benefit, my name is Scott Jennings. I'm the Director of Market Development for QlikTech in the Americas, in particular for the retail wholesale distribution set of industries. When we think about QlikTech, QlikTech is a new kind of software company that specializes in business discovery, which is user-driven business intelligence, in a category that QlikTech has pioneered. Very recently, Gartner has officially recognized business discovery, or what they call data discovery, as a specific category of BI. And one of the reasons is because QlikTech has been so successful in this space. With over 27,000 customers worldwide in 100 countries, with 1,500 global partners, including Allegro Business Intelligence, and 1,400 employees, it was hard not to take notice of all of the different benefits of business discovery specific to the business intelligence space. As you can see here across the broad base of 27,000 customers, I'd also like to point out that there are over 3,000 customers in the retail wholesale distribution sector that are implementing and using QlikView on a daily basis. Ron? Some of the key tenets on why business discovery has become so popular, or specifically business user business intelligence, are the 5 key tenets you see on the screen here. The first is around insight everywhere. And basically what that means is that rather than having a set of folks that are centralized inside of an organization and have them be the analytics experts and the only ones that understand analytics, QlikView is really based on the business user, driving insight to the edges of the organization so that all of the business users have access to the timely information that they need in order to run their business in a new and innovative fashion. One of the major reasons that insight everywhere is achievable is the application model that QlikView runs under. The ability to package up applications very quickly and then allow for distribution in a very similar fashion to what you would find in the Apple iTunes store, where you can select the applications you want and very easily access those without necessarily having any type of IT or technology skill set. Once you access those applications, it's very easy for a business user to remix and reassemble the different applications in a way that makes sense for them, to allow them to further explore and discover their relationships and their data to make better decisions. And around the topic of better decisions, typically that's not done in a vacuum. It's done in a very social and collaborative fashion or format. In QlikView's platform, one of the core tenets is being able to share insights in a collaborative environment, and that's a native part of the QlikView platform. Similarly, you can take your analytics on the road. So in most cases, a sales organization is going to be out in the field, and having access to analytics and having access to your QlikView applications via an iPad or via an iPhone is critically important, and it's a very fundamental piece of the QlikView platform and one of the 5 core tenets around business user-driven business intelligence. Ron, if you could advance slides, please. From a retail wholesale distribution point of view, which is really the topic today that Matthew's going to walk through around Purity Life's example specific to QlikView, are around a couple of key different areas, from sales and profitability management to the supply chain theme. And across all of retail wholesale distribution in our customer base, our most common applications are typically found inside of supply chain. But we also are found in a number of other areas, from customer and market basket analysis to doing segmentation and marketing. And the retail side of the house, we have quite a few store operation style applications that allow performance at the individual store, but then also allow you to pull in information around labor statistics and labor as a percentage of sales and a number of different profitability measures. Likewise, we also can take the multi-channel point of view as well if you sell through different channels and pull all that information together. And then there's the basic blocking and tackling that you typically find around executive dashboards, financial dashboards, IT and operations dashboards. On to the advanced slides. With all of that said, as I mentioned earlier, Gartner has recognized QlikView's leadership in the business discovery space and in the business intelligence space as a whole. QlikView is and QlikView has been the pioneer in business discovery, and as a result, you can see some of the accolades that QlikView has received from Gartner around being the leader in ability to execute, fastest data discovery, end user satisfaction, total cost of ownership, and product performance. All of those are very, very fundamental to having a successful business intelligence and business discovery implementation, and QlikView is the undisputed leader according to Gartner at each one of those categories, which is one of the reasons that QlikView has been so successful and received so many nice accolades from organizations like Gartner. On to advance, please. Just one quick success story in the wholesale distribution space before I pass the floor over to Matthew. We look at Wegter Services, which is a European wholesale distributor. This is the common profile for many of our customers in the retail wholesale distribution space. A couple of the key challenges they faced over time was they had a lot of outdated information around customer sales, suppliers, product availability, and delivery schedules, and they had a really difficult time pulling that information together in a timely fashion in order to make decisions that will actually impact the business in a positive fashion. The solution around those particular issues was implementing QlikView. As I mentioned earlier around the application style of implementation, there were applications built for sales, finance, supply chain, and service and support around a couple of key target areas, some of which Matthew's going to discuss regarding the implementation at Purity Life. You'll notice that they implemented around sales, which is one of the most common starting points with a QlikView implementation, but that quickly blossomed into royalty and trade fund management to make sure they're applying their trade funds correctly and spending their trade funds correctly. And then, of course, the supply chain theme around managing vendors as well as warehouse and logistics is a very, very common use case with all of our customers in retail wholesale distribution around that supply chain. And then, of course, they have some financial applications, operations applications, including some things around compliance and service level agreements. So the net result for Wegter was, first and foremost, they reduced the report generation time that they had prior to QlikView by 99%, literally from days to minutes. And that's a very common type of attribute of most QlikView implementations, is that you're cutting out the amount of time it takes to implement. But then on the business side of the house, their on-time delivery after doing a lot of analysis with QlikView in the supply chain increased 12%, up from 80% to 92%, and they achieved a full return on investment within the first year of use. So this is the type of story we see over and over again in the retail wholesale distribution sector with QlikView. And with that being said, what I'd like to do now is I would like to pass the floor over to Matthew James from Purity Life to talk a little bit more around the QlikView implementation that's been put in place at Purity Life.
Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that. Purity Life, we're a distributor of natural health products right across Canada. We have 2 DCs, and we distribute about 5,000 different SKUs, 200 different lines, and have about 150 employees. So our need for readily accessible information was very important to us. And one of the challenges that we had is we had a very archaic way of gathering this information. And given the volume of SKUs and the retail doors that we were selling to, we had a real challenge with trying to manage that process. Next slide, Ron. So what we were using initially was an AS400 modular system, which is a pretty old legacy system. What I call it now is a data warehouse, basically. But it was very difficult for us to draw information out of that system, and there was only a couple users that could actually do it. And if those users weren't available, then we couldn't get information. And the challenge was with the information that was coming out, it had to be formatted in such a way then to be able to actually distribute it through email or put it into presentations. So it was a very cumbersome way of managing, analyzing, and distributing data, and was certainly not optimum. Next slide, Ron. So in 2009, we were part of a larger company called Sunopta, and they had become aware of QlikView with a division in Amsterdam called Trodden, who, similar to us, was dealing in a lot of SKUs and needed the ability to process a lot of data quickly. So they had an experience there, and they came to us and said, would you be interested in implementing it? And I jumped all over it because I had been so frustrated with the challenges we were having with getting data out of our system. And we agreed, I think it was in February 2009, to do the implementation. It took 3 days, basically, which was, I thought, very impressive. Very little touch from the IT side of it. It was basically Allegro coming in for 3 days on site, mapping to our AS400 system. As Scott talked about, we focused on the sales side first and got that up and running. And we had gone from an environment where salespeople were getting information once a week, once a month. It was Excel stuff, very basic, all canned, 12-month rolling numbers, and they had to kind of wade through this information. So when we rolled out QlikView, and a couple of us got comfortable with it and realized, oh my God, the power that this will have for our sales team, it'll take us to another level. We quickly decided to roll it out to 16 sales reps that were on the road in Canada, as well as 3 inside salespeople. And so myself, I actually did the presentation to the sales team and walked them through how it worked and how easy it was to navigate the system through drop-downs and clicking, and the whole user interface was very simple. And we had put together a lot of canned reports that Allegro had developed for us to make it very easy to navigate through the customers that they had, drill down into the 200 different lines, drill into the 5,000 SKUs, all on the fly, all through a web-based system. So it made it very, very easily to really release this data to everybody and for them to access it on the fly wherever they had an internet connection. And that was a huge leap forward for us, both for the sophistication of our sales team and how we talk to our customers, being the retailer, as well as the sophistication we had with talking to our vendors. We could readily produce data, comparisons, look at margin by line, by SKU, and really dive into the information all on the fly, which we never had that ability before. So it really released the shackles of the legacy system and took us into the 21st century by having the ability to really look at the information quickly. And then from there, realizing the power and the ability to navigate data and volumes of data so quickly, we rapidly expanded the utilization into a lot of other areas of our business. We kind of took the philosophy that wherever there was data that was being captured in our AS400 system, then we had the ability to map to it and then pull out that data so that we could see it and analyze it on the fly in very different ways, whether it was creating very specific objects that looked at data in a certain ways, or using the ad hoc report functionality that you'll see Ron talk a little bit about. And so from there, next slide, Ron, we really went after expanding into the other areas, and we focused on purchasing and accounting. And one of the real big wins we had on the purchasing side of things was utilizing some functionality with QlikView on looking at our inventory reserve every month. We went through a process where it would take a day to analyze all 5,000 SKUs and understand expiry dates, understand aging, and then determine an inventory reserve calculation. Very cumbersome, labor intensive, and we had to do it monthly, and so it slowed down our close process. And so we converted everything from an Excel-based model to QlikView, and all of a sudden all of our buyers had quick visibility on inventory agings. All of our people in sales had an understanding of aging issues that we needed to address, and we were able to drop our inventory reserve requirements by $500,000 within a year of implementation, just by having the information readily available to us that we could analyze, we could act on, and process, and give data to the auditors that was consistent and understandable, and didn't take a massive Excel model to produce, or for that matter, hours to analyze. It was all done on the fly very quickly. We even created wonderful exports that would export the data into a order form that would allow people that we dealt with to buy aged inventory from us. And so that was a really big win for us. We then moved into providing automated reports for our vendors, and so there's an additional application that's connected with QlikView where you can automatically email out sales report, distribution reports, fill rate reports, and aging reports. And we took the philosophy with our vendors, hey, we're going to be kind of like Walmart. We're going to give you all the data, and it's going to be all automated, and we have it readily available for you, but you need to be responsible and help us in the sell process. And so that, again, really propelled us to a whole different level versus our competitors, and our vendors saw the value in that and started working with us a lot closer. We also developed a vendor scorecard as well that we utilized, bringing in huge amounts of different data from all over the organization. So we were looking at sales, we were looking at margin, we were looking at fill rates, we were looking at inventory turns, we were looking at accounts payable in case there was an issue and we needed to do a deduction, and we looked at distribution, and we were able to have on one screenshot all this information. And so we went to the trade shows to meet with the vendors. We could very intelligently talk in front of the vendors exactly what was going on with their business. And again, a big leap forward versus our competitors. It just gave us that visibility on the fly to make decisions, which in today's world where everything moves so quickly, makes a huge, huge difference. We then expanded into the whole financial area. We were using, through a different CFO at the time, a whole Excel-based, what I call black box model of doing the month ends and generating P&Ls and gross margin analysis and balance sheets and all that kind of stuff. And the challenge was there's one individual running it in a black box, in the sense that no one quite was sure how it worked. Even the auditors had identified it as a risk to our organization. And so when we had the opportunity to switch CFOs, we quickly transferred all the information from the Excel and mapped to our modular system, and then put all our P&Ls, balance sheets, trial balance, and then we also developed a number of analytics within the financial application that we created to allow us to quickly analyze where there were variances versus budget versus prior 5 months, to be able to truly understand where there were problems with numbers being applied to certain GLs, and allowed us to correct things quickly. And that was another huge advancement for us internally, where now all of a sudden the directors themselves could go on, and if they saw a variance within the budget, they wouldn't have to go and get a hold of someone in accounting and sit down with them and have the accounting person open up the modular system and go into all the journal entries to try to figure out what the variance was. They could actually just do it on their own. They could click on the P&L, click on where they saw the variance. That variance, once was highlighted, they could go into the trial balance area, see the specific journal entries, and quickly understand exactly where the issues were, and then inquire. So it really shortened that whole process of month end significantly by being able to have that information liberated, and the directors could see it, they could act on it, ask questions, and then we could get timely and accurate financial statements as a result. We also have automated a number of other areas that I'm going to show you in some of the applications that we created, and all for the purpose of, we have, as a distributor, we're dealing with such a massive amount of data that we constantly need the ability to analyze that data quickly and respond, particularly in an environment on the retail side where vendors and retailers are looking for transparency in data, and the ability to produce it quickly and provide it is a huge thing. Just a simple example with in the accounting area, deductions. For those of you that deal with big retailers and the deductions that come through, and being able to show the vendors as a distributor, in our case, what those deductions were for, we came up with a process of mapping to our system, then creating automated reports that we emailed out. So instead of having to produce backup that would be printed and then stapled to checks and mail, we were just automatically emailing these out. Again, just trying to make the whole accounting process much more efficient and be more transparent with our vendor partners on actually what the deductions were for. They could easily analyze them and audit them themselves versus trying to fumble and bumble through bits of paper that came with checks. So that was a big leap forward as well, and just in how we deal with the vendors. So if you go to the next slide, Ron, I'll just walk people through here on the various applications. So we started with the Purity Life sales analysis, which is the bottom right there. That was our first application. As I said at the beginning, it took basically Allegro 3 days to get that up and running. And we have since really advanced that application. I think there's got to be 20 different tabs in there now. Just a simple example, one of the issues that we have, again, as a distributor with deductions, is making sure that we pass through the deduction costs properly to the vendors. And so we came up with a whole process within QlikView to basically, at time of transaction, process all the costs of the deductions and create reports so we could understand the impact on contribution margin, right at the customer level, the line level, and have a much better handle, again, all on the fly, of what's driving profitability or not within our business. So processing that massive amount of data before took a huge spreadsheet that was gigabytes in size, that was managed by one person, that no one was quite sure how it worked, and it was impossible to email it to any of our key account managers for them to understand what was going on, where now they can go on the system themselves and truly understand what's going on, again, at the customer and at the line level. And we did that same thing with our sales reps as well. So we have all our tracking of our incentive programs within QlikView. They can go on at any time and understand how they're tracking, both on sales and contribution margin, by customer, by line within their territory. And it's a very easy way for them to understand where they need to focus their time, and it's a very easy way for us to understand where we need to focus our management and leadership as it relates to where there's issues and where there's opportunities. So the sales area was the first rollout. From there, we really started and accelerated our development. We moved on to, as I mentioned before, the Purity Life inventory aging area, and our buyers have really been using this data to understand, as inventory moves through the various inventory aging buckets, how they can lean on the vendors to start to return product to them, and the examples I gave about the inventory reserve as well. So now we have full transparency at the SKU level on what's going on in the agings. Again, our auditors love it as well, because they can understand how we calculate the inventory reserve. We also moved on to analyzing POS data. So we're buying POS or getting it from Walmart, Shoppers, Loblaws, retailers here in Canada, some of which you're familiar with, I'm sure. And we were taking that POS data. It was coming in a lot of different formats. So we worked with Allegro to basically consolidate the data and then be able to report it through QlikView, so the key account managers that can on the fly could access the POS data, and any of us in the building, including marketing people, could analyze the POS data and understand what was going on with the various SKUs. So we developed two different applications, only because the one retailer, Shoppers Drug Mart, has a different period format than the other retailer. So you see two POS applications there for us to understand consumer purchase trends on the various lines. And we then circulate that information to the vendors as well. We also developed the Purity Life consolidated shipment data, which is on the top row, third one from the left. And that was to be able to better understand who our true customers were. So although we are a distributor, we also sell to wholesalers like McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, and we needed that data from them to pay our brokers on the specific retailers that those wholesale shipments were going to. So again, we were getting data from McKesson, Amerisource, Bergen, massive amounts of data coming in, sometimes not the most consistent formats between the two different sources. We were amalgamating it into our system with our shipment sales and bringing the two together to say, okay, here's a ranking of our true top customers. So McKesson is not a customer, they're a wholesaler. And we have now the visibility of, okay, well, McKesson sells to Loblaws, they sell to Rexall. Now we have that direct data, and we can in turn use that data to pay our brokers on. So before, we were using a sales analyst to do this, and it would take them days, basically, where now there's a quick formatting of the data as it comes in, and then dropped into a folder. QlikView points to the folder, and boom, you've got it all readily available and transparent to the key account managers, and then we in turn can send it out to our various vendor partners as well. We also did order analysis, which is the first application in the top left, which is for our customer service team to understand the trending on orders, whether they're phone, fax, EDI, email, or online ordering. And we use that data to help us understand where to deploy resources. And so that's an important part of what we do as a distributor, where we're dealing with a lot of retailers who are calling or emailing or faxing. We need to know where we need to put our people and understand the trends that are taking place. Other credits, top row, second in from the left, that was an application that we created to allow our sales team to understand the credits that are being processed. So basically it was mapping to the journal entries within the financial system for them to be able to see what credits were being issued to certain customers for co-op, trade spend, that kind of thing. We also did the supplier analysis, which is bottom left, last row, and that was basically to link to our warehouse management system, which is a Celos that we use, and understanding the time between PO submitted to vendor to when it arrived at our dock, what the fill rate was, and try to create a vendor scorecard specific to the purchasing side of things beyond sales and all that other stuff that I talked about with our other vendor scorecard we have in the sales analysis area. And so we have developed these 9 applications since 2009, starting with sales analysis, all for the sheer fact that we need to be able to analyze our data quickly, efficiently, and make decisions on it rapidly, just given the nature of our business as a distributor. Lines come and go all the time. The retail environment is very dynamic between where we sell our products in health food as well as food, drug, and mass. And we need to respond quickly as well as differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And we've used this data to differentiate ourselves and released a lot of the data on the sales and inventory side to all our vendors to make them a part of our success. And that's worked really, really well and really differentiated us from our competitors. So if any of you have a huge amount of data and you have a few sales analysts now that are pounding through Excel or whatever they're using, or different software system, I would certainly recommend QlikView as a way to analyze huge amounts of data very rapidly and free the data up so anyone in the organization, based on the user permissions you want to provide, can access information and spend more time really analyzing and making business decisions versus trying to grind out the numbers and then get the information out. I mean, yeah, you can pull information to Excel, but then you got to try and circulate it and process it. Where the nice part about this is when a user is sitting in front of the data, they can say, oh, I want to see it this way, or no, I want to see it this way. And these decisions, they take like clicks and seconds to process massive amounts of data, and that just makes life easier for anybody when you do have that kind of data and you do want to make those decisions that are going to turn into profitability, or greater profitability at the end of the day. And that's what it was all about for us. The transparency of the data created the accountability, which allowed us to make decisions on and improve our profitability. I gave a simple example of the inventory reserve. There are many others, but I thought that was the most pertinent one in the sense of being able to go from taking a long time and not having a good handle on inventory reserve to taking a very short period of time and being able to make quick decisions and understand what we need to do as a reserve at the end of the month as it relates to inventory reserves. So that's basically what I wanted to cover, and I'll turn it back over to, I guess, Ron to talk a little bit about QlikView and show a demo that he's got.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate all those insights. We are going to move ahead here. This is a little bit about me. We've been a QlikView partner for since 2007 now, and we're one of their elite partners, founded in '97. We both resell the product. We help implement it. Our focus areas is on retail, manufacturing, consumer product goods. You can see some of our customers here, and we service clients throughout the U.S. and Canada. So with that, I'm going to actually give a QlikView demo. It's had one question about can they actually see the product in action. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to open up this as a QlikView application. And what I'm going to do is walk through this demonstration of QlikView, which is a very rich product. So I can only introduce you to some of its capabilities. What I want to do to focus on today is QlikView's self-service approach and how simple it is for users to get in and consume information. And to accomplish this, we're going to use this particular demonstration of a sales-related application. But of course, we address many areas of the business, as Matthew just described, and its uses are really only limited by your imagination and the types of data that you want to join together into this QlikView application. As we're getting started here, I'd like to everyone to take away 3 points. First is QlikView's associative user experience, which is really the patent that underlies the product, which makes it unique in the marketplace. The second is the ease of use, and the third is the time to deploy. Now, Matthew mentioned that he was up and running in 3 days when we did his implementation initially with the sales information. This particular client here is a food and beverage manufacturer and distributor, and we built this application. We're going to go through the application here in just a second, in 4 days for them. And they were able to use it then to understand their sales in much greater detail than they had before. And they discovered that they had some pricing irregularities that they were able to correct based on the insight on this thing within the first 4 days that paid for the entire engagement in just that one discovery. So very, very quick ROI for them. And in fact, this particular client was, after they adjusted that pricing based on the insights, their VP of Financial Planning Analysis told me that it was incredible to him how cheap QlikView was relative to the value that it delivered. So all the information in this particular QlikView application has been scrambled to protect confidentiality. There are about 2 million rows of data in this application, so it's a fairly small data set for QlikView. But I will say that QlikView can scale to really massive, to extremely large data volumes, to where you have hundreds of millions, if not billions, of rows of data in the application. All the data is in memory of the computer, which makes it very fast and interactive. One of the things I like to start with is to introduce people to basic metaphors and operations that are used in QlikView. QlikView is designed to be used by end users with really no training, so it has to be very simple. Literally, if people can understand a few of the basic concepts that I'm going to show you now, they will have the skills necessary to go in, find information, and obtain results without having a detailed understanding of the underlying data. One of the basic notions and concepts to understand is selected and associated data. So here, when I want to make a selection, I just have to select on something. I select on 2012. That turns of green. That's selected data. So the data is associated with that is in white. So you can see that in white here I have 12 months of data in 2012. And I start having in here I have my regions. I have all these regions have had sales in 2012, but these regions here in gray don't have any sales in the system in 2012. So what you see here is your entire data set. What I've selected, the data that's associated with that selection, the data that's not associated with it. That's very much different than traditional tools that are based on a querying system that only returns a result set that with information that complies with that query that you issue. With QlikView, none of the information is ever hidden from you. Some of the other metaphors shown here is the ability to make selections and navigate through the selections backwards and forwards for the browser, which is a familiar approach in most ways. So, I can make a selection here, for example, by dragging over the first quarter, for example, information updates. I can continue to make a drill in here by selecting a particular customer, for example. You can see that I'm making that selection. This customer in January 2012 bought these 5 product lines and these, 5 items in those. And here's my broker and here's the sales rep. And as I mentioned earlier, I can go backwards and forwards in this analysis, by just clicking, this browser-like cycle. Now, we're going to explore this concept a little bit more in detail as we go on. But some of the other basic metaphors shown here is the ability to make selections and navigate through the application and to bring together data in many different ways. One of which is through these cycle buttons here. For example, in this particular case, here I see it by item description, but I can easily switch this around here to say I want to take a look at this by formula, for example. So that ability for the user to bring together information is one of the ways that we can build a lot of self-service into the application. I can also interchange information on my desktop. So here I have this minimize icon here in NetSales. I can double click that and I can expand that up onto this screen. And I can now pack a lot of information density that's specific to the individual and what their information needs are very easily. Again, these are just sort of simple operational concepts. So what I'd like to do now is explore this in a little bit more detail. And one of the things that I want to do is again take a look a bit about this application. It's a food business, and everything then here is in memory, and all the information is connected together throughout the data model. So if I make a selection on this tab, for example, if I go in here, you can see that these tops here. If I make a selection of 2012, that selection impacts not just this screen, but throughout all these different tabs at the top where you see these little indicator lights. So if I want to take a traditional drill pattern in here, let's say I want to take a look at this product line here. I'm going to click on this product line here. You can see that in 2012, I can see that these 11 customers bought products from me in 2012, and that they bought these 57 items, and I had these 5 sales reps doing those sales. And I can now see, associate, interact with every object that I see here on the screen. So if I want to sort these screens here, for example, by margin in here, in a particular case, here I can see that these are the formulas that I have that have the highest margin percentage. And I can now select those, for example, in those tabs in here and be able now to focus in on those areas. And as I'm making these selections, you'll notice that all the information is being updated on the end of these graphs. And the other concept that I'd like to be able to show here in this slide is to say that the user is free to go anywhere in the information that they want to be able to go, that there's no predefined navigational patterns in this system. So for example, if I now want to click off this particular customer to see what this customer has bought from me across all my product lines, I can just clear off, and you can see he's only bought that one product line, but he bought it in February of this year. Let me get off him and say, let's pick this guy. I mean, he might have a little more activity. He doesn't have any more activity. But you get the idea here. To show an example of this, let's say I wanted to make a selection here of sales that were just in my J months. I could do a control click here and be able to sort through that. And now this application is now focused on sales that I've done in those J months. You can see over here on my right here I have these current selections. If I want to remove one of those selections right now, filter just to these formulas, I can clear that formula out here, and now I'm seeing all of the different. So think there is no predefined. The user is free to ask any questions, go anywhere in the information that they want to, consistent with their rights and permissions. I can also search through the database, sort of like Google-like ease here. For example, let's say that I wanted to search through this database of, say, my grape items I can start entering grape in here, and you can see now that as I type in grape, it searches out through the entire 2 million rows that quickly, and it says, well, I have one formula that has grape in it. I have these 103 items that have grape in it. And let's say that I just wanted to take a look at, my grape drink, which is, this item right here. And so now this filter is all filtered down on that grape drink product. And lastly, I'm going to back up in here just a second here and clear off my prescriptions. QlikView, you can also make selections in any of the charts and objects. So let's say I wanted to be able to select this time frame in here and pick those particular formulas. Those are my formulas that I've done. So I can check, interact with everything like I said I see, and I can also change the dimensionality of what I'm looking at. In this particular case, for example, I'm looking at a pivot table, but if I wanted to take that over into a straight table now so I could sort it, for example, I can do that. So that allows us to be able to, again, put the user into an environment that they can see and interact with the information in the way that they prefer to, rather than the way that IT prefers them to think through. So those are some basic operational concepts. What I like to do now is go over to this dashboard view of the application here, and here I'm going to take a look at this by product line and by customer. This page here is a visualization of some of the key performance metrics within their particular environment. And here I'm seeing the interplay between products and customers and what their sales and margin is. So as I made this transition over to the sheet here, as I said earlier, then the selections that I've made carry across all the different tabs. So these different tabs here at the top here, flash summary and customer summaries and so forth, products and whatnot, these are just different views into the same underlying data. And all of the data is integrated together in this QlikView analytical model. So if I want to start with a very traditional drill down, I might decide, for example, to analyze my sales by region. And so what I'm going to do is use this cycle button here to change to region. So these are my regions, and I can now sort this by, for example, my margin percentage or my margin here, and I can see that region 50, I'm going to concentrate here on region 50 if I can find 50. Not in there. Interesting. Let me concentrate on this particular region here, which is region 50, which is what I wanted. It has the lowest margin in this particular case. And now I can see, now that I'm in region 50, I can see what sort of customers that he is selling to in this particular product line. And I can see now the items that he is selling in that particular product. And I can see that in this one I've got, these sales here. I can now say, okay, well, let me take over here to my customer summary and be able to see now what's up with this particular customer and see all the sales I've done, margin percentages, and so forth. Clear this off. So we want to concentrate now on, in the time I have remaining, with sort of rushing through this because we want to leave some time for customers, some of the self-service capabilities that we have with QlikView. So in here I have my top products, top customers, and top sales object, and this allows people to interchange information on and be able to see the relationships between these various types of features. So here, for example, let's say I want to take a look at, I have my top, I have these sliders down here at the bottom right here that allow the user to adjust based upon their ideas of what they want to analyze. So let's say I want to take a look at the first top 25 of my products, and I want to see my top, let's say, 5 of customers who are running those customers in here. Let's try to get that we'll keep them up here at, let's say, the top 20 customers that are buying those products. And I want to see who the top 10 of my sales reps are. So now these are my sales reps that are selling to my top customers and my top product lines, top products. So if I want to sort this out here in this particular object, and let me focus just on 2012 sales. Let's say I want to say these are my gross sales here, the highest selling items in here that I want to be able to see. Right? These are those top products. These are the top customers, top 20 customers who are buying those products. These are the top 10 customers. So if I want to see the bottom 10 customers, well, I just have to invert this. So instead of doing these customers in terms of gross sales, I'm going to say just invert those. And now, I'm going to say that the other customers are the bottom ones. So you can see now that how these information can interchange. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're bringing in that lowest level of detail in this organization. So this is every invoice, every line on an invoice. And so the people can here get down to the various lowest level of detail. So if I want to see all of my orders here in the month of January here, for example, these are all my orders. And if I want to pick on a particular sales order, I can now just pick on that sales order, and I can see everything about that sales order down to the line level of detail on that. Not just on that, but I can see that back, for example, on these other tabs. When I go back to my dashboard, that is just that one sales order, for example. So this ad hoc tab was mentioned before. This is a way of being able to allow the user to be able to create their own reports. So here, for example, let's say I want to take a look at my customer, and I want to take a look at my net sales by customer. I can create that report here, and I'm focused on just one client here now. So let me focus him off. Let me clear this thing off. So customer and sales. So there's my customer and sales, and I can continue to add on here. Let's say I wanted to bring in here a city into that slide. And so now I have that city that I've added into that slide. And let's say I want to now be able to constrain that down to 2012. And I want to be able for the user now to put down, let me put a state on here, for example. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say, here's my ship to state. Refresh that report here. And now I want to change this around. I want to make this a pivot table. And there's now my pivot table, right? And I can expand that all. So users can be able now to create their own reports from this, and then if they want to, they can clone this report here and then drop that report over onto the scratch pad that's unique to them. So in this scratch pad here now, I just created my own report here. I can use that by myself and no one else will have access to this, or I can share this application with others on my team. And so commonly what we have in our customers is that we have, for example, analysts that support a wider, let's say category managers or a group of buyers or a group of sales reps and sales ops. And those analysts then can create their own visualizations, their own reports without having to go back to IT and then share those with their team. If I wanted to export this out to Excel so I could collaborate with others, then I would just have to hit this Excel button. It launches Excel and it jumps that out into Excel. A couple other things in terms of self-services that we give the people the ability to interact with, to compare anything with anything, as an example. So, here, for example, let's say I want to compare my particular line item in here. Let's say I want to take a look at this product line here. Let's say I'm going to take a look at that product line here. Then I want to compare that sales in January of 2012, and I want to be able to compare that to a particular region. In here, I'm going to say this is region 50. I'm going to set that as group 1. So that's my group 1 selection. And then I could say, for example, I want to compare that with, that same information with 2002, excuse me, with February. So I've just compared those two selection states. And again, I can share this information with other people or connect it out. You can see very quickly, things, for example, how well does this line sales compared to the category sales, for example. And if, the user can do that without, as I said, going back to IT. IT doesn't have to be able to anticipate the types of questions that the user can ask and build that in. Let's see, this mapping tab here is, I'm going to clear this off. This mapping tab here shows that QlikView has a particular API. This is what integrating with Google Maps. The QlikView can, through its APIs, can integrate with a number of different packages, like geospatial information, or it could be information that's in a statistical package if you want to do cluster analysis and some sort of predictive analytics and so forth. So it's a platform that can be extended out to a variety of different people. And lastly, I want to be able to show you some of the collaboration features of QlikView. I'm doing this through a webinar here, but I want to come up onto, I'm connected here to my server, and it just has to reconnect here momentarily. Most people will access this QlikView environment through their browser. And you can see here now that I have the same application with the same functionality in a serial footprint client. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring in this environment is that we don't work in a vacuum, and so the collaboration is important. So QlikView has a number of different collaboration features that it has. One is that I can, for example, make a note on annotations on pages. So I can add a new note to this object in here, for example. I can take a snapshot of that information because the information is always changing, and then I can say, take a look at sales. Sales in 5059 or 409. Right, I can add some text in here, and then I can save that comment, right? And then that comment is added into that annotation, and people can then be able to click on that, be able to see what I was looking at, and then be able to continue to have this sort of threaded discussion around that. So one way is we can annotate, make annotations, on these various objects. The other way is we can share the session with other people outside of our organization or inside the organization that don't have QlikView licenses. So here, for example, I can share this session, and I can email this link to somebody. And when they get that, they can then click on that link, and they'll be brought into this same QlikView environment, and they can collaborate with each other as if we were sharing, each other, or sitting next to each other, side by side, sharing each other's mouse. So this is a way, for example, if you have vendors that you are dealing with, and you want to show them what you're seeing, or you have sales reps, or have, store managers that you want to be able to show them what you're seeing in the QlikView environment, you can do that in a real-time way, and that's unique to QlikView. And one last thing here on this clipbad is that we mentioned about the some of the collaboration features in QlikView. What I can do here, if I wanted to create my own in my browser environment, I can create this browser here sharing session, and you see I have this repository of things I've already built, and I can say, for example, let me take a look at my top customer here. I'm going to drag him out to my desktop here, and I'm going to create a copy of him. And so I've just brought that chart into this object, and then I can continue to expand that by adding dimensions and so forth. So we have about 5 minutes left. That's a real quick overview of QlikView and some of its functionalities. We did have some questions that are coming in, and I'd like to be able to share those questions with people. So let me see which ones we want to address. I guess the first one is to Matthew, and Matthew, the question comes up with dealing with how was the system rolled out at Purity Life.
Good question. because QlikView is so unique to each of the implementations, we had, for ourselves, made a little screenshot manual that we used for our sales reps and gave it to them and kind of walked through with them through a presentation, kind of here's how it all is laid out. So that was the introduction of it, and then from there we trained the managers on some of the more specific ways to drill into the data, and then as they were working with each of the reps, they then got the reps up and running. From there, it became pretty intuitive, kind of like a Windows environment, where when you know how to run one Microsoft application, you kind of know how to run them all, and that's very similar with QlikView. So once we did the basic things of showing them, as Ron did with highlighting certain things you want to look at and the date ranges, all that kind of stuff, it became very easy to do the rest of the rollouts. But that's basically what we did. We did a screenshot version of a manual and then handed it out, and then trained the reps through the managers and one overview session with the reps.
How many people were involved in the in your implementation? You know, both from the consultant side, from the Allegro side, and from your side.
Really, it was just one person from Allegro, and then there was myself and the CFO at the time, and then from there, myself and the director of sales rolled it out to the rest of the sales team, and then as various other directors got interested, they started working with Allegro directly for very specific applications, like the inventory one. So it was, there was only a few of us really. It was a very basic, easy implementation and rollout.
Okay. And I guess the another question really is for me, and the question was revolving around what's our approach to working with clients, and that really is that we work how the client wants us to work. There's basically 4 different sort of common themes to our engagements. One in which we just sell the product and they don't use us, any implementations, services. The second is the more typical one in which we're retained to come in with clients and start the first couple engagements, enable the client's staff and train them on how to deploy QlikView and how to use the best practices. And we get some quick wins and some high value areas, and then they become self-sufficient and we retreat back into support role. Another way is when we're basically an outsourced QlikView developers, which is the way that Matthew has essentially used us. And then the third way is that sort of a blend where we get the application stood up fairly quickly, and then they take over, but then they use us for sort of high security areas like HR or financials that they want to maintain confidentiality, or that are more complex than they think that their staff can handle. So those are some of the ways that our clients engage us. Matthew, the next question is what do you think is the greatest value that QlikView has provided your organization?
That's for me, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, certainly the ability to understand margin, gross margin, and contribution margin at the customer and line level. And through that process, we transformed the sales team's incentive program to be weighted heavily towards contribution margin and less so towards sales. And we used the whole QlikView implementation as a way to understand and analyze that data for the reps and for them to look at it themselves. So with 5,000 SKUs, 200 lines, that's a lot of data to understand. And that just gave us the ability to understand where we were making money and where we were losing money really quickly. And that by far was the greatest advancement for us, that visibility, and then the reaction or how we acted afterwards as it relates to where we were going to put our time or not.
Okay, well, we've just reached our limit. It's an hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to thank everyone for attending this session. I especially want to thank Matthew and Scott for participating in the webinar. And this ends our session. Thank you all very much. Well, before I end it, I will say this, is that if you want to get information about this, there's my phone number here, email, and also Scott Jennings' phone and email for Scott as well. And with that, I will sign off. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.